This presidential election is about the battle of dynasties. You have the Clinton, you've got the Bushes, and you have the Pauls as well. Senator Rand Paul following, of course, in his father's footsteps, Ron Paul, and he joins me now. Rand Paul, good to see you.
Glad to be with you, Don.
So yesterday, President Obama had an emotional plea to the nation about what he wants to do about gun violence. And in response, here is what you tweeted. You said, our founding fathers said Congress would write the laws. I'll fight Obama's executive orders tooth and nail. How are you going to do that?
You know, I think all of us have a little bit of that emotion in us that when we see and hear about children being shot at school. I have 3 kids. They're now getting older, but I remember dropping them off at school, and I think all of us are emotionally drained by just imagining that happening to our kids. But then we have to think through. I think we all want the same goal. Nobody wants these mass shootings, so I think we start with the same goal. We have to figure out how to get there. But I'm a big believer in the fundamentals of the Constitution, that one of the fundamental things the Constitution does is it tries to restrain too much power from accumulating in one hand.
You're concerned about the Fourth Amendment when you
well,
talk about
yeah,
that.
I'm also the Second Amendment, but I'm also concerned that legislation should originate in Congress. And it has nothing to do with President Obama. He and I get along fine, we're in different parties, but it's for any president, Republican, Democrat. Even if I were the president, I want that power to be limited because that was part of what our Constitution did. We didn't want to have a king, and we said legislation has to originate in Congress. If he wants these new gun laws, he needs to come to Congress with it.
Okay. You wouldn't do executive orders if you were the president of the United States?
I wouldn't use executive orders to legislate.
So, and when you look at this, and you see this, Bush did 291. President Obama has done less than any of the last current presidents.
I was a pretty big critic of Bush on a lot of these, too. So I've been consistent, Republican or Democrat, that really very little should happen through executive orders if it means legislation.
So then what do you do when you look at public support? 89% of voters say that they would support background checks for people buying guns and for gun shows online. That's
right.
What they say. So then what would you do if the public wants that? Those are the people who put you in office,
right.
But you're working with a Congress who says, nah, I'm not going to touch it.
The first thing you have to do is figure out why are people opposed to it. So you ask someone like me, am I for or against background checks? I'm actually for background checks. So we have them in the vast majority of gun sales. About 90 to 95% of gun sales, depending on the statistics, are done with background checks. What they want to do is have background checks for private sales. So I've got 5 guns at my house, and you come over to my house, and you're my friend, and I say, you know, you want to buy one of my guns, and you give me $300 and I give you a gun. It's very onerous for me to become a dealer. It's almost impossible for one individual to be a dealer for one gun. But that's what the president said the other day. For one gun, I might have to become a licensed dealer. Or you could say, well, no, we don't want him to be a licensed dealer. We just want a background check. How are you going to know that we had this transaction? See, the San Bernardino killers, he went to a friend of his and he got those guns. It was already illegal in California. It's illegal to have a private transfer of guns. He got them, but we have no way of knowing it did it. So if you want to stop it, our fear is you would have to have a gun registry. I
don't recall the president calling for a registry of guns.
You're right. They're calling for background checks. The fear is that when you do private transactions, since you're not, if I'm going to sell you a gun, I'm not a licensed gun dealer, there's no way of knowing when I sell you the gun unless we were to have a registry to make it work. 26
days until the Iowa caucuses. Yesterday you were in New Hampshire. You were meeting with college students. You're going to be in Iowa tomorrow for your birthday. By the way, happy,
Thank you.
35th?
Yeah, 39, I think. Yeah.
So have you tried to differentiate your ground game from the other places and in those 2 different states? Is it a different strategy?
One of our strategies everywhere across the United States is trying to get the youth vote. If you ask people 40 and under, do you think the government went too far collecting all of our phone records and having all that data, that private data about individuals? 83% of people under 40 believe that. You know, I've been a loud voice. I spoke for 10.5 hours on the Senate floor saying enough's enough. The government's gone too far in collecting our records. So we think the youth vote is open to us, and we're working very hard with the youth vote. We think also the young people believe the war on drugs has gone too far. They see their cousins, their friends, their brothers going to jail for marijuana and minor drug offenses. I also become very aware that there's a racial disparity in the war on drugs, and that we think it's an opening, because I am for criminal justice reform, actually to bring new people into the party that haven't previously thought about being Republicans.
You have been very vocal about that issue, those issues, and for a long time. But if you want the youth vote, you should talk to your dad. Your dad had it locked up. What's going on with you? You're younger than him.
You know, he was the hippest 75-year-old candidate you'll ever meet. No, I think we still are doing well. I don't think there's evidence that we're not doing well until you have a vote. we've gotten kind of tied up in the whole idea of being led around by the polls.
Yeah.
But I don't think the polls are very accurate. And the one reason I say that is I've yet to meet a college kid who's ever participated in a presidential poll.
Yeah.
They don't call young people, and they don't call people on their cell phones.
I want to talk to you about this issue with Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and the whole Canadian, whether he's a U.S. citizen or not,
Right.
or if he is eligible to be president. What do you think?
I think absolutely, without question, he is qualified and eligible to be the Prime Minister of Canada.
So not to be president.
No, it's kind of a joke. I mean, the thing is the one thing that I think is striking is you may be aware that some people thought the president wasn't a citizen. Yeah. And this went on, and there was an entire movement. And they wanted to maintain that it wasn't partisan, it wasn't racial, it wasn't this, wasn't that. But then when they actually have someone who was actually born in another country, I haven't heard a peep from any of the same people. In fact, the people who led the movement are now seem to be completely fine, not with someone who actually, as the president was born here in the United States, someone who actually wasn't born here, not a peep from anybody. So I am the first Republican to say, you know what, there's been a double standard on the whole birth issue. I don't know the answer for Ted Cruz. I think it will be raised, maybe.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the debate that's coming up. You're on the bubble. And
Right.
you said if you don't make it to that main stage, which you very well may not, that you're not going to participate. How does that work? How can you be a voice and run for president if you're not going to participate in a debate?
The good news is the last CNN debate about a week ago, we were in the top 6, which should put us in the debate. CBS had a poll last week, which put us 5th, 1 point away from 4th. So we think we're actually moving up in the polls, and we will qualify. Really, any of the last month's worth of debates, polls, we should qualify.
But if you don't, are you going to participate?
Yeah, I won't participate in a second tier because, we're a first tier campaign.
Right.
And if 3 weeks to go in the campaign, the networks or a Republican Party can say, oh, that's not a viable candidate, what do you think that message sends to the voter?
So
I think it's
are you
unfair.
still a viable candidate then if you don't?
Absolutely. And we'll make sure that the voters and everybody else knows that we won't be designated as second tier. I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. But even if it's not me, I don't think it's fair to put Jeb Bush in the second tier. I don't think it's fair to put Kasich, a sitting governor, in the second tier. I think really it's unfair for the media to have so much power to decide an election before anybody votes.
Yeah. Your birthday's tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Powerball tonight. Are you going to buy a ticket?
Yes. What are you getting me? What's my present?
This is it. I'll get you an
Powerball
interview
ticket?
on CNN. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks.
And thank you for coming in.
Thanks.
Best of luck.
And when we come right back,
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.